Let's get it going. It's a huge matchup in the West Division to kick off CFL Week 12. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers, coming off their first loss of the season and a bye week, host the Calgary Stampeders, their third and final regular season matchup this season. Welcome inside Bonfire Sports. It's Game Day Winnipeg. As we always do the day before the game, live at 3 o'clock. The legend to my virtual right, Chris Walby, in the house. Bluto, how you doing? How was your bye week?
It was a great bye week. Great bye week. It was nice to get away from it a little bit. I mean, we're not in the same, categories or the same need for a time off from the physicality of the players. But it is nice just not to have to worry about coming back and doing a podcast or making sure I'm staying, up on top of it. I still watched all the games. The games were interesting. I guess, there's a lot of things happened last week. It's probably one of the most intriguing weeks for quarterbacks around the league. And it was just crazy time. So to me, it's nice to get back. I love the fact that after a bye, we're playing a team that's on the rise, I think. But also what we're talking about, the guy behind center for them now is a bit of a surprise to me.
Yes, his what do they call it? His worship, the Maier. Jake Maier will start at quarterback, not Bo Levi Mitchell, Thursday night here in Winnipeg at IG Field. It's country night. Nearly 28,000 tickets have been sold. They could have easily eclipsed that in the last 24 hours, Chris. We're going to talk about Bo Levi and Jake Maier. We're going to get into Nathan Rourke and his likely season-ending foot injury. He will have surgery in the coming days. How that changes the entire landscape and dynamic of the West Division. We'll get into the Blue Bombers' health situation, as well as the rejuvenated run game, but maybe a pass game and pass protection that isn't exactly where it needs to be following two tough games against the Montreal Alouettes defensive front. But let's start with the big picture, Chris. The Blue Bombers are 9-1. They're coming off a bye. They have a home game, which is nice. They're also playing against a very, very good Calgary Stampeders team. I don't care what anybody says. The Stampeders are a good football team. They have 3 losses this year, 1 to Winnipeg, 2 to BC. The most recent to BC was a huge comeback and a 1-point victory for a then healthy Nathan Rourke and the BC Lions at McMahon. Now, no Nathan Rourke. They'll move on to Michael O'Connor. A lot of people are confident in Michael O'Connor, but we will have to see what the BC Lions are without their young superstar quarterback. And now the Calgary Stampeders are 6-3. The Bombers are 9-1. I'm wondering if you agree with me, Chris. Must-win games, like the true must-win games, come in November, obviously, when it's win or go home. But right now, with how things are shaking out in the West, and the Bombers coming off their first loss of the season and a bye, and it being a home game, face the same team 3 times in 41 days. But I'm calling this a must-win game for Winnipeg.
Yeah, I think they want to shake the cobwebs off, and you don't want to come off after a bye and basically be in the outhouse. So, I mean, I think that, they'll be ready. They've had a good week of practice. Listen to Coach O'Shea. The guys are energized. They're ready to get back on the field. They're ready to play, ready to get another paycheck. Listen, Calgary is not a bad team. They've been playing a couple different guys now. Obviously, I was looking at the lineup from the last time they played to this time. They've got a new right tackle in Joshua Coker. They've got a new wide side cornerback in Natrell Jamerson. They like him a lot. Sean Bain, who might be one of the fastest guys in the CFL, opened the game against Toronto with an 80-yard touchdown. Just blew by the coverage. This kid is a game breaker. And now they got him with Malik Henry, Reggie Bedlington, who's, always a thorn in the side. Kamar Jordan.
Not having the season you'd expect of him, but he's still a potential danger.
Well, are you talking
Kamar
about
Jordan?
No touchdowns. I mean, that's the crazy thing. A couple of years ago, he was in the MVP race voting, and then he had that unfortunate leg injury. But, I mean, you're looking at the talent they have there. They got a good O-line. Listen, they lead the league, only 8 quarterback sacks against. I remember last time we talked about this, Derek Dennis is very vocal about saying he is so tired about hearing about the Bombers O-line and how great they are. And he says, a lot of times you got to give respect to us. Listen, they're taking a page out of the Bombers book when Andrew Harris was here. They've got, their number one rushing team right now. They've got a guy who's back again in Kadeem Carey, who in 2 games versus the Bombers, I marked it down. He's averaged 7.7 yards a carry and 2 touchdowns, 92 yards first game, 110 the second game. Just gets it done. This has got a great. And the guy they had replaced him, Mills, that guy's a beast as well.
Or Peyton Logan. It was Peyton Logan earlier. There's all they're as much as Calgary's been historically a quarterback factory. They are pumping out running back talent this year. It's crazy.
They used to rely on the pass. They really used to live on the pass. And now I think that they have such a good running game, and that O-line is teeing off on people. It was interesting to listen to Dave Dickinson, the head coach of the Calgary, and he even though came back and scored 19 unanswered points to come back to beat Toronto. I mean, obviously that was late. Obviously Eli Buka with the big interception, but listen, he didn't like his play calling. He says, I got to look myself at. He says, I have got to look at myself. I didn't like the way I called that game. I probably put Bo Levi in a tough situation. Obviously, Bo Levi throwing a couple interceptions. Then they replaced him, obviously, with Jake Maier. He throws an interception. But the fact is, he was 14-18. He moved the ball, led him to the winning drive. This kid's a pedigree. He's a heck of a quarterback. I really like him. But I want to digress, if I can, and go back to what we were talking about, and that is Nathan Rourke. The fact that you talked about this kid, 700 yards more passing than anybody, with a game less than a lot of teams, 25 touchdown passes. He's had, I don't think he's had a game under 300 yards passing.
He has as many 400-yard passing games this year than Bo Levi Mitchell has in his entire career. That number is unbelievable. What a stat.
And it's going to be interesting because I was listening to Coach, and that's why I like watching. So I go on the web and I listen to their coaches conference. I'm listening to head coach Rick Campbell out in BC. They really like Michael O'Connor. And, looking at the guy, he's a big target. I mean, I didn't realize he's 6'5". This guy, I mean, he was a
Penn State recruited him. Penn State recruited him before he came to Canada and won a venue.
I think he was the most valuable player in the conference he played in. He's been around. He was with Calgary before. I think he might have been with BC, if I'm not mistaken. But he was with
Toronto. He was with Toronto, then BC.
But I think when he's in the scenario with quarterbacks and John Huffnagel, GM, Dave Dickinson, the head coach, both quarterbacks in their history, in their resume, I think he's going to be all right. Even if you listen to Michael O'Connor, he goes, I'm not Nathan Rourke. Don't try and compare me to Nathan Rourke. Everybody's going, well, even if he plays up to superstar status, will he be Nathan Rourke? Well, no, he's not. And he says, I just want to be Michael O'Connor. I'm looking for this kid to play pretty good tomorrow.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how BC fares. It'll be, I know what you're saying, coming up later this week. It'll be interesting to see how BC fares. Of course, they have a rematch, if I'm not mistaken, with the Calgary Stampeders in Vancouver on Friday night. That's the late game.
Saturday,
yeah. But here's the thing, Chris. The injury to Nathan Rourke didn't just rock the CFL in that the most exciting player this league has seen in a long, long time, and maybe probably the front runner for CFL MOP this season as a 24-year-old first-year starter. Beyond that, it's changed everything in the West, as I mentioned right off the top of the show. Saskatchewan, I don't know if they're still in the conversation to maybe not be a crossover team or not miss the play. It really depends on how Cody Fajardo gets through his health. But Calgary, Winnipeg, and BC, it used to be BC and Winnipeg, and then maybe Calgary a little bit below because both of those teams had beaten Calgary. And now you're thinking, well, is BC still as powerful? Probably not. However, Calgary is now making a quarterback change. Bo Levi Mitchell has had one game this year where he looked like his old self as far as yardage and touchdown production. Outside of that was a game against Edmonton, I think, in week 3. Outside of that, he has been 170, 210-yard passer, interceptions on par with touchdowns, no real punch, no real danger in the Calgary Stampeders passing game like we've seen. They moved to Jake Maier. Chris, I think this is an upgrade. Sorry, Bo. Sorry, Stamps fans. Sorry, not sorry. I think this is an upgrade. Jake Maier, every time he stepped on the field, has shown to be a very, very good quarterback. Not a capable quarterback, a very good quarterback. May I remind Blue Bombers fans, the last time he played in Winnipeg, he went 16 of 16 in a stretch of time and went on to break a CFL record for like the most completions in a 3-game span versus incompletions. So the guy is a very, very good football player. I think Winnipeg needs to be careful. This is not a downgrade on Bo. I think this is an upgrade, and Winnipeg needs to be ready.
See, I'm kind of a torn on this one because I'll be honest with you. Bo has done everything. He's a 2-time most outstanding player. He's won the cup. He struggled, as you say. I think first 4 games he was averaging, I think, 275 yards passing. The last 5, 179. So obviously production's down, more interceptions and touchdowns. Reason for concern. The thing I like about it, I think it's a great move by head coach Dave Dickinson. Start Maier. Let's see how he does. I mean, if this guy really rocks and rolls, and gets everything going, I mean, they stay with him. If he doesn't, not many teams have a backup like Bo Levi. And I know Bo Levi is biting at the bit already. If you watch his interview, he says, I will be back on the field, but I'm supporting Jake Maier. Right. We're happy. I mean, it's almost like the scenario in Saskatchewan.
That was his Instagram post, right?
Yeah. And the backup's playing now. So I mean, I think sometimes you got to do something to shock your team into going the right direction. I don't think they were happy the way they played against Toronto. They just lucked out in that game. And like I said, if it wasn't for Eli Buka on that 62-yard interception touchdown to jackknife these guys back into the game, they would have lost to Toronto. I mean, I thought if you watched the game, the best guy to throw the ball was McLeod Bethel Thompson. He was throwing the ball extremely well for Toronto, but they just kept fumbling the ball. It was a game of turnovers during that game. But I'll just go back and say this: I think Jake Maier is a good quarterback, but doesn't have a lot of experience. And I like what defense coordinator Richie Hall said. We don't take a play against a quarterback. We play against a system. He's been in the system for a couple of years now. They're not going to change the system with him.
No, they don't need to.
They don't have to. And one of the things I do like about Maier is he's very accurate with his throws, reads the defense extremely well, gets rid of the football quick. I mean, this is a good offensive line. If this offensive line was, say, like Hamilton's, or Saskatchewan's, oh, God forbid Saskatchewan. No wonder Fajardo's running for his life. If I was Fajardo, I'd have 3 knee braces right now. But it's just, this is a good O-line. This allows a quarterback to get comfortable. And like you said, the fact is they run the ball so extremely well that allows that offensive line to tee off instead of just, rather the hammer rather than nail in the old adage, right? So
it'll be fascinating Thursday night to watch the Blue Bombers defense and the scheme that they decide to dial up against this Calgary Stampeders team. For Jake Maier, he is a veteran. He's played in games before. He's started a number of games before. So I don't know if it's about making him uncomfortable any more than a team would try to make any opposing quarterback uncomfortable. I don't think Winnipeg's defensive game plan changes, but this is what's interesting to me, Chris. I was told by some people coming out of that second game between the Bombers and the Stamps in Calgary that the Stamps didn't really have an answer for Winnipeg because Winnipeg played a little bit of possum the week before against Edmonton, didn't show much, squeaked through to a win on the road. But however, they went into Calgary and they dialed it up. And by that, I mean, they changed their game plan. They did things that the Stampeders were not expecting, and they didn't have an answer for them. So in the third meeting, the rubber match between these two Western rivals will be interesting to see how they jockey with one another. This I know for sure. The Stamps are going to be coming into town really, really fired up. They have not played their best football as of late, and to lose 3 times to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the team that has effectively knocked them out of the playoffs and the postseason in each of the last 2 years, you don't want to lose 3 times to them because that's a huge psychological disadvantage if these two teams meet in the postseason, and they very likely will.
And it's interesting when you say 3 times, and for the Calgary Stampeders to lose 3 key players. I mean, Jameer Thurman, Titus Wall, who was well on the way to being another guy nominated from Calgary for Rookie of the Year, 3 interceptions, a couple of sacks, a touchdown. And then you got your starting center, Sean McEwen, who's out, and they're going to play Bryce Bell now, who was a backup guard the last time they played, who's now going to start at center. So, I mean, obviously I'm talking about how good that O-line is, but obviously there's a new kink in there with the center not playing on a regular basis. So, I mean, but then you look at the Bombers, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but obviously Ellingson. And then you look at Janarion Grant, who is a game breaker. You know, we saw what he did. He just takes one up the middle for a touchdown. And then, of course, I think, who else are they missing? Cramdy is not playing.
Janarion Grant is and Greg Ellingson are the big ones. I'm just trying to pull up the Bombers and Stamps depth charts here. I mean, it's tough, but Winnipeg is healthier than they've been in a long time. I understand losing Greg Ellingson is a hit, but the receiving corps should be fine. You know, they do have very good players outside of Greg Ellingson. Of course, there's Dalton Schoen, Nick Dembski, Rashid Bailey has been utilized at times this year and other times and not. Drew Wolodarski, I think, is having his best season as a professional.
Absolutely.
He's been excellent, especially in second halves this year. He's been great.
I think he's been a clutch player. He's a guy that I don't think they threw a ball enough to him. I don't think they looked at him and targeted him enough. Right now, he's got over 27. He's got 2 catches over 30. He's got over 300 yards receiving, but he's coming up with the big catches. Obviously, we talk a lot about Rashid Bailey, who was a star for these guys last year. Now Dalton Schoen, who is, I just saw that picture from the Bomber store. He's up here in half a year and already got a bunch of jerseys with his name on it. So it's super. I mean, but you look at him, what he's done. We talked about this last time. He leads the leagues in 20-second second down conversions. He's the guy that Zach Collaros looks for when they need that to move the sticks, move the chains. It's sad for Ellingson because, he missed a bunch of games with Edmonton last year too, buddy. And then we pick him up and he's a great receiver, but now he's on the second time. I think he's on the 6th game. Now, which he can still come off, I believe. Yeah. But having said that, that's a big play guy. And listen, when you get up to a certain age and you start having injuries on a regular basis, it does not look good for the future. So as far as not this year, but going forward, you always want to go younger and cheaper. So it'll be interesting.
Greg McCrae, the American running back, will start at slot back. Tavares Harrison is somebody who's dressed for a handful of games this season. Otherwise, he's been on the practice roster. Big body guy, kind of reminds me of a Clarence Denmark type with maybe a few more inches of height and a little more length. I expect him to maybe get his first ball thrown his way in a regular season game. And then, of course, Dalton Schoen kind of been moving everywhere in the Blue Bombers receiving corps. But, this depth chart, it gives you a picture of who's in and who's not. But those receivers will move around quite a bit. On the defensive side, not too many changes. Brandon Alexander still working his way back from injury, has a piece up in his own words on the Blue Bombers website to kind of, talking about his recovery, which has been a long road. Him and Noah Hallett working together while the Blue Bombers practice. Here is Jamal Parker, who is a practice roster defensive back. He is going to handle kick and punt return duties, as you can see there, for the injured Janarion Grant. He's on the 1-game injured list, so hopefully that's not something too concerning for the Blue Bombers. But a couple changes, nothing too crazy. Chris, I do want to mention at this point, a huge supporter of us here on Bonfire Sports, and it is a team that is near and dear to me, and I know it is to you as well, because you and I have called their games for their webcasts in the past. The Winnipeg Rifles Junior Football Club. You can find tons of information, everything you need on riflesfootball.com. They're kicking off their home schedule this Sunday. They're going to be playing at Eastside Eagles Field. The Saskatoon Hilltops are coming to town. This is the elite level junior football in Canada. The Prairie Football Conference is the best conference in the country. It's better than BC. People will disagree with me, but I believe it is. It is definitely better than the Ontario Conference. It shows every year in the playoffs. The Rifles are poised to make a big move this year. They went toe-to-toe with Regina last week. In Regina, they're expected to be the power of the league. The Rifles lost by 2 points, and it came down to a penalty, a missed kick. It was a very close game, but this Sunday, August 28th, 1 o'clock kickoff at Eastside Eagles Field. That's right next to Terry Sawchuk Arena and the Elmwood Kildonans pool. Just off of Concordia. Tickets are $15, super affordable. If you bring your kids, everybody under 18 is free. It's great football. The Rifles are a great team. You're going to see another good team too in the Saskatoon Hilltops, who've won, what is it, like a dozen Canada Bowl championships, national championships.
A great program with Saskatchewan. And listen, and junior football is near and dear to my heart. I think Jordy Wilson's doing a great job with the Rifles. Obviously, that's where I got my start with the Winnipeg Rods. When we used to have 4 teams here, the Hawkeyes, the Rods, the Lions, and the Mustangs. And then they amalgamated and, basically made the Winnipeg Rifles, which made us on par with Saskatchewan, who only has had 2 teams all the time with Regina and Saskatoon. So I love the fact that they're doing there, and I've got a lot of love for those guys. I mean, a lot of these kids, this is their beginning, right? They're taking the first steps toward hopefully a pro career or something, or maybe even getting a scholarship and going down to the States. I played with the Rods for 2 years, and I ended up getting a scholarship. So a lot of doors can open playing junior football. And as you say, the Winnipeg Rifles have done a great job of recruiting and putting a great product on the field.
Well, Chris, that's why when I met you, I knew I would like you, because I played for the Rods as well in St. James. I did not get a scholarship out of that, though. So I went and paid for myself at school. That's kind of what I had to do.
What were you, kicker?
I played. Yeah. Don't you think that would have come out when you and I and the kicker were on the radio for the better part of a decade? That probably would have come out.
I'm going to guess that you were something on. For some reason, I want to say a receiver.
Yep, I was.
See? That's right.
The big mitts.
Oh,
it's just ink on there.
Big mitts.
But like, here's the thing: junior football. Like, there's a handful of junior football players on both of these teams right now. Mike Benson, the Blue Bombers long snapper, 10 years in the CFL. He played for the Winnipeg Rifles. Keenan LaFrance. We all know Andrew Harris and his path to Canadian Football Hall of Fame status through junior football in the BC Conference. There is Tom Schnitzler, not Zach Schnitzer, Tom Schlitzer. I'll get it.
Holy
Tom
crap.
Schnitzler of the Calgary Stampeders. He played for the Saskatoon Hilltops. There are tons of guys across the CFL that come out of junior football. It's affordable. It's great football. Why are they playing at Eastside Eagles Field? They're putting in a brand new, beautiful turf field, fence, lights, new work in the clubhouse. They put a new floor in. They got new facilities there. The field, the stands, it's going to be a great atmosphere a little bit later this season. But go to riflesfootball.com. You can find more information in the video below. This Sunday, 1 o'clock, get down to Eastside Eagles Field if you're in the neighborhood, or take the quick drive out there. Tickets are $15 and more information, riflesfootball.com. You can find them on all the social media channels at Rifles Football as well. And when you're down there checking it out in the video description, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, subscribe if you haven't yet, ring the bell. You'll be alerted when we go live. Of course, Chris, you won't be there, but Schnitz and I will be. Not Tom Schnitzler, but Zach Schnitzer for Game Day After Dark following Thursday's game between the Bombers and the Stamps.
Ooh, baby. You know they have that after dinner drink. It's a very dark. It's supposed to calm me down as German. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Well, like Jägermeister?
Jägermeister. That's what you need to have if you want to say that name. Come on, buddy. Have a shot of Jägermeister, then you'll say that name perfectly.
Well, see, I was adopted. I got German roots in my family, but I'm adopted, so it's not even like real, blood and guts, but
yeah, I saw your family tree. There's a whole bunch of dogs peeing on it.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Just kidding. I want you to get all upset on me now. Come on, man. But hey, if I
don't know if I could. I
want to say one thing about this, though. You were talking about the receivers. There's a kid that we haven't talked about for a while, and I'm wondering if he what's the recovery rate on this kid is. But Carlton
Agadosi.
I mean, this is a guy that had 2 great touchdown catches in the first game against Calgary. And so he hasn't been back since he got hurt on the ankle in practice, I believe, or next game. So, I mean, what do you know about him? Well, how's he doing? I mean, you're the guy that you got all the feedback on these guys.
Yeah. Carlton Agadosi was put on. He played that.
He's going to come in. That's the guy I think if Ellingson doesn't come back and this guy gets healthy, that's the guy they're going to put in there. I'm telling you right now.
Well, it was that game in Winnipeg against the Stampeders when Ellingson came out of the lineup. Agadosi came in, had 2 touchdowns, including a super impressive one against Trey Roberson, who, by the way, is now on the Stampeders 6-game injured list. But Agadosi was put on the 6th game after that 2-touchdown performance. So he's, what is he at? He's about at the 4 or 5 week mark right now. So he might
his ankle. I think his ankle got smashed up. But
here's the thing, Chris, you know this as well as anybody. Just because you're on the 6th game doesn't mean you're going to be back after 6 games. It could be a 10-week injury. It could be a 4-week injury. We don't know.
Well, you talked about the depth, and they do have depth. But I'm just saying, I just want to add his name to that list because obviously, no disrespect to a Greg McCrae or Tavares Harrison. I would think that if Carlton was ready or Agadosi was healthy, he'd definitely be the guy they put in the lineup because I think this kid had a real bright future. It was very unfortunate that he came down funny on that ankle, and like you say, he's been on the 6th game for a while. And you're right, that doesn't mean he'll be back at 6. Could be 10, could be 12, could be earlier. Who knows? But anyway, I just thought I'd tell you that as you posted up there the injured list right now on the screen, which is good.
So Brandon Alexander, I don't expect him back anytime soon. Soon being a relative term, of course, but I just don't, he's not practicing yet. He's not going to be back for Labor Day or the Banjo Bowl. That's kind of my speculation at this point. Michael Couture broke his arm. He's out of his cast, still not practicing, but doesn't have the cast on his arm anymore. So that is a very positive sign. Of course, Greg Ellingson, as we mentioned, freshly put on the 6th game, which does not bode well for his availability for the next month and a half. Noah Hallett working once again with Brandon Alexander. Good workout buddies because they're both defensive backs and probably helping each other out. Mercy Maston had season-ending surgery. Brendan O'Leary-Orange has been at practice, Chris, but has not been working with the team. He's just in casual clothes watching on. He's been there for a while as well, so not sure how that'll shake out. Malcolm Thompson has only been on the 6th game for a couple weeks, but that's a huge hit to the Blue Bombers defense. Of course, Kyrie Wilson, another one that has been on there for a while and does not look like he is practicing or working out in any of those, close to return capacities. So that's kind of a look at your injury report.
Which is good.
But not, yeah, it is overall pretty good.
I saw Kyrie was at the Alumni Association Wine and Cigar Festival thing or whatever they have.
You weren't there. Were you there? My parents went and they said, we don't know anybody here.
No, matter of fact, I'm not a wine guy or a cigar guy. So
I've heard you whine plenty.
I know they had cold beer, but for me, I have a hard time. Have you ever gone to these things where they give you it's like a teacup of beer? It's just teasing me. I can't live like that, man. No.
Well, speaking of that, do you have your beautiful Pilsner glass from thesportsvault.com?
I do right here. As a matter of fact,
good.
It's right here, but it's not even empty. Look at this. Beautiful.
You mean it's not, you've been using it?
There it is. There you go.
Look at that. That's nice.
That's very nice. But thanks for bringing me a glass.
Hold it up there. Hold it up. I want to show everybody. Hold it up there.
Well, you're supposed to bring me something to put in it.
Yeah. Right.
Look at
really
that.
Nice.
See? Very nice glass. And that's a man-sized glass. That's a nice glass. That's what you want.
Yep. And if Chris Walby says it's a man-sized glass, it's going to be man-sized enough.
It's a good glass.
For
that's
you.
Right. Thanks for bringing me the refreshments to put in, though. That was good.
Check it out at thesportsvault.com. This is what we gave away on Bonfire Midweek this past week, Chris.
That's nice.
Beautiful, freezable beer mug. You wanted this. I said, sorry, it's going to
I want the other
loyal
ones.
listener.
You have the small little ones that your mom even said, "Hey, I like those." The little
the beer can shaped ones.
They're really nice. Yeah, I like those.
Yeah, don't talk about my mom. She was saying you wanted them.
See that phone? That's Cody Fajardo. He's upset about the three knee braces.
Three knee. Yeah, well,
he's a little angry at me right now.
Right. Okay. Cody Fajardo calling Chris Walby during the show.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, let's talk about Mark Leggio because, Chris, he obviously sparked the ire of many Blue Bombers fans coming out of that overtime loss against Montreal 2 weeks ago. Said all the right things in the media, spent his bye week both resting and working. But overall, it wasn't just one miss. It was the second that went off the upright in overtime that would have extended the extra frame. your perspective now that you've had a week to digest during the bye, where Mark Leggio stands. Punting very well, missing critical kicks when the Bombers need him to hit.
Well, I'll tell you what. I've got an angel on this shoulder right here who says, hey, listen, he's still at 83%. He's 19 at 23 along a 48. And the devil over here goes, hold it. He's only got one dang job. Well, he's got two. He's got a punt. But he's got one job, and that is when you're inside that 30-yard line, it should be a no-brainer. I mean, obviously, to miss two close ones, very tough. But I went on Twitter, and I defended the young man. I do believe he'll rebound. I think it's one of those things where, maybe he was thinking a little bit too much. I mean, the first one, he just shanked it terrible. And I know everybody's going, why didn't he kick it to the end zone? Well, obviously, he didn't think he was going to miss it. He was just punching it out. The second one, obviously, he tried to adjust because the first one went to the left. So he tried to make the adjustment, and he hit the right upright. So, a bit of bad luck for the young man. Obviously, a terrible way to lose a game. It falls on him. There's no doubt about it. But as Coach O'Shea says, if we have to rely on one play to win the football game, maybe we have to look at all other aspects. But having said that, if you go to the Grey Cup, and I can still remember Montreal and Saskatchewan thought they won the game, and they had too many men, the infamous 13 men on the field. They allowed another kick by Montreal, and they won the Grey Cup. So, I mean,
right,
that's the thing. But I mean, listen, I like Mark Leggio. I do. I'm reading all the Twitter comments about Hiram Hairelahu, who's just got released by Dallas. But these kids, once you taste the big money, it's very tough to bring them back here.
Well, if you're a kicker, it's not like being Chris Strevler and being a quarterback. If you're a kicker, you're one phone call away from playing in a game. You're one phone call away. Like, you can sit there on Sunday and watch Red Zone and see kickers miss and be like, you know what? Philly might call me. Miami might call me. Kansas City might call. You know what I mean? Like,
hey, DB, there is no forgiveness in the NFL.
Zero.
You missed a couple. And
ask
he was actually
Sergio Castillo.
He was
ask
actually
Sergio.
Yeah, well, he's been playing well here. Hairelahu was not playing well. Not playing badly. Excuse me. Yeah. He was hitting the heck out of the ball. So they just went another way with another CFL kicker, and they brought him in, and he won the spot now. But I just think that right now, guys, and that's your point exactly. I watch all the time. That guy misses a kick, bam. Next, they got another guy coming in, and it doesn't cost them nothing to fly guys in. So, do I expect to see Hairelahu back in CFL? No. Do I see him at another team? Yes, absolutely. And especially when the season gets going, and some guy struggles and misses two or three, bam, he's gone. The door opens another one. But hey, good comment by Corey May. I think Leggio is really in the top one or two punters in the league. I like what he's doing. He's placing the ball extremely well, not allowing a lot of returns. So good point by Corey there. But you mentioned the guy, and I'm going to go off a topic again because I'm like a pinball bloody machine. Chris Strevler.
Yeah.
It is so cool to watch two games.
No kidding.
And this guy is making plays, and to be called out by the head coach twice, just saying, hey, this is a guy didn't have any snaps in the first one. They threw him in the fourth quarter, led him to a game-winning drive. Now he gets some snaps, comes in third quarter, leads him again, running the ball like old Chris Strevler can. You see him when he got around the corner, and I saw you picked it up, that the old guy that used to play for Winnipeg, was it Alford?
Yes.
He was supposed to try and tackle him and missed him. And,
and then the interception that Strevler threw, which was clearly not his fault, DeAndre Alford in coverage before the safety came over and just made an unbelievable play, ripping the ball out of the receiver's hands. But you're right. Chris Strevler is
Chris Strevler.
He's opening people's eyes, not just in New York, but across the league for like the type of gamer he is. The things we know here in Winnipeg and in Canada about Chris Strevler, they're learning about now as he's a fourth stringer on a bad football team in the New York Jets.
Not for long.
Yeah, no kidding.
The New York Jet fans are going, no. As soon as he comes in the game, people get excited. He's making things happen. This is a guy that I promise you will be at least third string. He's getting an opportunity, and he's making the most of it. I mean, obviously, like I say, with two post-game, you watch in locker room with the head coach of the New York Jets, and he points out Strevler again. saying how good he was. And even in the press conference, talking about Chris Strevler.
Yep.
And we had the pleasure of watching him when in Winnipeg. We knew he was a heck of a runner. We knew he was a horse trying to bring him down. But he's throwing the ball extremely well. And I know that was
he's
one
figured
of
it out.
That was
He
one of our
looks
knocks.
good.
We said, hey, listen, can the guy throw? Well, he's answered that and more. I mean, he's throwing some nice darts. He's also got some great receivers down there too. But it's nice to see. And I think the Jets are playing the Giants on Sunday. So both 2-0. So those of you who want to watch and see Chris Strevler, tune in Sunday, or else go to the Rifles game, baby.
That's what you want to do. And if you, I should mention, if you can't make it to the Rifles game, go to CJFLTV.com. That's the Canadian Junior Football League, CJFLTV.com. You might hear a familiar voice on the play-by-play on Sunday.
I didn't know that either.
Well, yeah. Well, like you used to do the games with me.
Yeah, but I didn't.
What happened to those days?
Is it a YouTube video kind of thing or what? What is it? Or is it just?
Yeah, it's an online stream, and they got multi cameras. Like it's a really sharp broadcast. You can buy a season package and catch all the action, all of the games across the country on that. Yeah. Okay, Chris, I'm curious of your keys to the game for this matchup. We've talked about the quarterbacks. We've talked about the run game, both Calgary and Winnipeg, the defensive matchup in facing Jake Maier, and of course, Winnipeg coming off a bye week and then their first loss of the season, and probably not entirely on the kicker, but the kicker being a significant part of why they didn't win. Your keys, what's it going to take for Winnipeg to improve to 10-1 on the season and put Calgary far behind them enough for some comfort in the West Division standings?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I know we usually at the end, but I mean, it's one of the things. If you look at Calgary or what Calgary has done, they're number one rushing team. That's a huge thing. But there's another thing they're number one at, and that is average yards per first down. So they always put themselves in second and short, second as they call and manageable. So for me, the Bombers have to shut down the run game on defense. And I think they've got to take away, put Jake Maier or Bo Levi, whoever is in at the game. They got to put them in second and long situations, because you're going to see, and we saw an article already on Willie Jefferson and Jackson Jeffcoat saying we're going to get some sacks. It's one thing to get pressure, but we want the stats as well. And people go, what about stats? Well, stats, they don't really have a lot to do with it except for one thing. It's year-end bonuses, and that's what it is. If you lead the league in sacks, if you get 10 sacks in a year, there's always a bit of monetary bonus. So I'd like to see that. For the Bombers offensively, I think it's the same thing almost. If you look at the last game they played, Brady Oliveira finally had a breakout game. 110 yards rushing, averaged 7.3. That Bomber O-line and him were working well together. As a matter of fact, I think he's averaging like 6-something since the last 3 games. So I'd love to see Brady get involved again with the run game. And I think the Bombers are tight too. They got to stay on the field, got to stay on the football field, can't get themselves in second and long, and keep giving Calgary, their offense opportunities to score points. Both these teams are like 1 and 2 as far as takeaways. So, yeah, it's a tough. I mean, they didn't have a sack on each other the last time they played. Both great offensive lines. It's going to come down to a handful of plays. They always say a handful of plays determines the game, and that's the truth, brother.
Phyllis, who's watching live on YouTube, she always brings it, but mentioning this, Chris, this is why she loves the show. Chris Walby knows he's bang on with his advice every single time. Well, you probably would be. You played a lifetime nearly in the Canadian Football League. So listen to Blue Bombers, says Phyllis. Thanks for watching as always. Everybody who's in the live chat today, thanks for joining us live. If you're listening to this after the fact on the podcast, thanks for downloading. Thanks for supporting. Head over to youtube.com/bonfiresports and like our videos. Give us a thumbs up, comment, or you can do this. Text the hotline, 204-816-TIPS. That's 816-8477. Call, leave a voicemail, text. I always text back. If you comment on the videos, I always respond. If you have a question, a comment, a hot take, we love to see it. So if you're not able to be in the live chat, you can still get engaged here on Bonfire Sports. And of course,
go ahead, Greg. Good point there, but I just want to throw a little thing in here, little thing. Maybe the Bombers, if the Bomber front office are watching here, we lost a great sideline reporter, a great lady. We've got a lot of lot of faith in her. And Sarah, who went to the Jets. You should be doing the sidelines. You're at the Bomber Stadium all the time. I think that you should be there. You're in touch with what's going on in that football field as anybody. So that's just my little pump for you, buddy.
Well, my TSN days are over for the time being, right? So here's what I've seen. Britt Dort in Saskatchewan, Claire Hanna, who also started in Saskatchewan, but she's a Western Canadian. They've been doing fantastic work on the sidelines. Huge shoes to fill in Sarah's, but wishing Sarah the best. I talked about this on Bonfire Midweek last week, but she will be great. Huge asset Winnipeg has here, not just as a professional and an outstanding polished reporter and host, but just a great person. In my time working with Sarah, she always made it so easy, put you at ease. I was so green and young and nervous. And she'd just be like, we got this. You want to do another take? No problem. Like it was easy as pie with Sarah, and she's sweet as pie too. So, going to miss her on the CFL sidelines. I'm sure she'll still be popping by practice now and then, but wishing her the best in this next chapter with the Jets.
Her last game is the Banjo Bowl.
That's right.
So
that's right.
If I was still doing the thing for Wade, where I was doing the pre and the halftime show, I'd be giving her a big shout out, and I get the crowd. So hopefully, whoever's doing that, if anybody's doing that, somebody should give her a big shout out, and I hope the club recognizes what she's done.
Oh yeah,
at the Banjo Bowl, because it's gonna be sold out, and I plan.
What a great game
going to, man.
Yeah, like it's sold out, and it's the Banjo Bowl. It's got that history. It's a regular season game in the middle of the season, but like if that has to be your last game, middle of the season, a great game for Sarah to report on the sidelines from. Amen. So looking forward to that. Chris, this is what I want to ask you as I pull up my Blue Bombers schedule here for 2021. Still 2 bye weeks and 3 road games of the Blue Bombers, 8 remaining games this season. Following this game against Calgary, they got the back-to-backs with Saskatchewan. What's that?
2022.
Did I say 21? Well, I've always been somebody who relishes in the past.
Get that Jägermeister going, brother.
I digress, and I'll take a shot of Jägermeister for that word I always like to overuse.
All right, man. There you go.
Back-to-back against Saskatchewan will be interesting. It's the first 2 of 3 meetings this season, and in the second half of the season between the Bombers and the Riders. In Hamilton, home to Edmonton, and then a back-to-back with BC.
That's tough.
I think I flipped those around, but it is going to be a tough finish. Michael O'Connor presumably will be quite comfortable at that point. I have a lot of faith in him. A lot of people I've spoken with in BC and beyond have a lot of faith in Michael O'Connor. He is a little bit more 1 or 2 dimensional compared to Nathan Rourke, who has multiple dimensions to his game. I think it'll be important for Michael O'Connor to keep things simple. They've got a very talented running back there in BC in James Butler. Get him involved in the pass game. Obviously, pass protection will be important. But one of BC's real strengths, Chris, that I saw with Nathan Rourke is that often the O-line can make a quarterback look good. It was the opposite. It was the quarterback making the O-line look good. The way he was able to escape pressure, extend plays, be off schedule, roll out, break the pocket, step up in the pocket, find passing lanes, and not just going to 1, 2, 3, but going into 4 and 5 in his receiver progression, eyes downfield for 24 and everything. You talk all day about Nathan Rourke and his skill set, but he's made that BC O-line look really, really good. And that was kind of the question mark going into this season. This BC Lions O-line has been pretty bad for the last 3-4 years, like the Devon Claybrooks days, right? They weren't much better in 2021. And there they are this year, strong run game, making things happen with Nathan Rourke. Will they carry a little bit more of the load without your number 1 guy and keep Michael O'Connor comfortable back there?
Well, I'll say one thing they did, which is really good, and they brought in Kelly Bates, an ex-CFL offensive lineman who's coached at the university down there. I believe he was at SFU or UBC. And they made him the O-line coach, and it was almost immediate the way they improved. They started to improve. I think he's got a good group of guys there. I think that I don't think they're going to make cut the package down for Michael O'Connor. I don't think that. I think he's got a good grasp. He's a very intelligent young man. I think they're just going to say, "Here, let's go." Obviously, as you said, I agree 100% with that. Nathan has the ability to extend plays with his legs. I watched him do a sidearm throw, aka Patrick Mahomes of Kansas City.
Yeah.
Just a beautiful job of seeing. His eyes are always downfield. And the schemes they're running. I mean, obviously, when they had the receiver go to the left, they pull both guys in. Lucky Whitehead gets right behind him for the big bomb for a touchdown. They've got talent there. Brian Burnham. I mean, Keon Hatcher. They've got some talent, buddy. I'm telling you right now. And their defense is playing. But you actually said that when the last time they played, that you thought they had the best secondary, the BC Lions. And I know they're very good.
Damn good.
Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. You know what I want to talk about right now?
You're taking the reins.
The new guy who might be now was not the front runner, was the front runner in the beginning of the year, but now with Nathan out, might be the front runner again. Zach Collaros, who has had 2 outstanding games versus the Calgary Stampeders.
He did.
I mean, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions, averaged 72% of his passes. He made it look easy against a Calgary defense that had a lot of their guys in. So I'm looking for Zach to continue with the success he had. Obviously, we have not been stopped on 3rd and 1. I think Dakota Prukop is a short yardage guy, is, as you say, a big, strong running back. And seems like a lot of the quarterbacks now are taking it to the outside. You know, they fake like they're going and they get around the outside and they're hooking these guys in. So it'll be really interesting to see how they handle that. I'm really curious to see what Jamal Parker does. You mentioned him. He's going to be the return guy. You know, a small little guy, 5'8", out of where is he out of? Kent State. So can he fill Janarion Grant's shoes? I don't know. Janarion Grant's pretty amazing returner. So
really is.
Hey, you know, one door closes, another opens, right? And some guys make the most of that opportunity.
Yeah, and you know, I don't think we'll see Jamal Parker in the Blue Bombers defensive secondary. He is listed as a backup behind Dietrich Nichols. Demario Houston had missed a practice earlier this week. I believe it was listed as an illness, but he is good to go. Here's Patrice Rene, a Canadian that went to the University of North Carolina, alma mater of Michael Jordan, of course, amongst many others. But in the football field, Patrice Rene, 6'2" Canadian defensive back, has not made a roster yet this year, but it's interesting that they bring in 3 defensive backs. Tyrell Ford, the Canadian rookie, Patrice Rene, another Canadian rookie, and then Jamal Parker as well. Normally you'll see 1, maybe 2 backups there. The Bombers are going to dress 3. And then, of course, here's a player, Chris, that got a lot of press and talk coming out of that loss against the Montreal Alouettes. Donald Rutledge Jr., who had the toenail clippers out during the bye week. Real tough moment there. Have you ever seen a situation like that where an offside is game deciding and it's by that small of a fraction?
It was his helmet. If you watch the replay again, it was his helmet over the line. And actually, I thought Adam Bighill handled it 100% by saying, listen, if they make the call, you got to live by it. You can't really go back and say no. Can you challenge it? If you look at it slow, the helmet's over the line. And then I saw somebody posted a Montreal-Hamilton game, and the helmet was over the line, didn't call it. So it's so subjective. And it's
here's the thing, Chris. I sought clarity on this. Everybody in the media here was trying to seek clarity on this. It was the toe over the goal line that ruled him offside. The helmet is not supposed to be in that neutral zone, but they will let that go. In Hamilton, where it was not called, you look at his toe. His toe is over the line, but it's over the back side of the goal line. Donald Rutledge Jr.'s toe was over the front side of the goal line, which is the goal line, right? You have to break that plane. Okay. So full clarity there. I'm going to keep you in check.
That's like saying I could put my helmet like in the NFL. I can put my helmet right across, and I could be at 2 yards over the line because
they don't have a neutral zone. They don't have a neutral zone.
Well, whatever they have. I mean,
I'm saying in the CFL they will let the helmet over the line go because it's in the air.
You're going to tell me now that helmet could be over the line, and I could be right by Pat Newfeld's head and say, "But my hand's back here." but my helmet's here, and you're going to say that's not offside? Come on, buddy.
They have discretion, right?
Well, that's what I said. It's discretionary, but it's a discretionary call, and I didn't like the call. But it's a terrible way to lose a game, to give them an opportunity to come back. But that's football. Listen, Bombers have been getting a lot of breaks going the other way, their way. This is one that went against them this time. Right. Obviously, you tied in with the 2 missed field goals. Did they deserve to win? No. I don't. Look at the O-line. Do you think the O-line played good last week? I love this O-line we have in the Bombers. Do you think they played well? No. I don't think they play. I don't think it was their
Mike Moore pushed him around. Mondo Siwa.
And that was the guy that I said they should go after. I said that on the podcast. Let's go after 44, Mike Moore. Well, guess what? He showed me up, made me eat the crow. But I just think the O-line, maybe they were tired, maybe they beat up a little bit. And I wonder if that's one of the reasons they dressed Tamoya Machino getting a chance.
Right.
They got 7 O-linemen now. So it's kind of cool when you think about it. This is a guy.
Well, that's the thing. That extra DB and now that extra offensive lineman. Normally they would just dress Liam Dobson.
Liam Dobson would be the only guy.
Right. So, let me ask you this, Chris. Stanley Bryant, and look, all due respect, this guy is a Hall of Famer. He's right there with you.
First ballot.
Yeah. I tell Stanley, I'm like, Walby's the greatest offensive lineman in CFL history. Stanley, you're the greatest American offensive lineman in CFL history. Same with Jamarcus Hardrick, excellent player. Pat Neufeld. These guys are great players. However, they're not exactly spring chickens anymore. Could you see that age potentially being a factor in why after 10 straight games they had a bad game?
Oh, and listen, I mean, again, they gave up some sacks, they gave us some pressures, they gave us some hits. I think it was the hits that disturbed more. But having said that, there's probably, the 10 games. Maybe they were thinking about the bye. Maybe they weren't 100% clued in or tuned in. But having said that, as far as the age thing, no. O-lineman, if you take care of yourself, you can play. I played 12. My last year I played was 40 years old. I was 40 and still made Eastern All-Star. I mean, that was
in the 90s. That's like 40-year-olds didn't play back then.
You did. I know. And I almost tried to come back for 40. My 17th year, I was going to come back, except I went to CBC. Probably smartest
Tom, who you're the original GOAT legend, being able to play into your 40s. That's unbelievable.
Guys that I grew up watching, Johnny Bonk, and play with Johnny, Nick Bristaya, and then you go back in the era, Bill Frank, a lot of guys that played way in the 50s and 60s who were just studs. So, I mean, I think there's much more notoriety now than there was back then. But I love the guys and the mentality back then. Think about these guys. They practiced at Old Packers Field. They all worked in a meatpacking plant after that. You know what I mean? It was a tough life. They weren't making a ton of cash. And
but more than the NFL back then.
Yeah,
that's why they came up.
Right. But I'll say
why they came up.
I just think it was an off game. I think it was an off game for the guys as a team. Because a lot of times if the back doesn't pick up a guy, we'll blame the O-line, but it could have been the back who has to fill up and pick up the linebacker. Or the quarterback holds on to the ball a little bit too long. Now, do they have their work cut out? And great, thank you for putting this up here. Sean Lemon and Mike Rose. My God, did they have a game last week? Those two guys, 2 sacks apiece. Sean Lemon is now in the top 20 all-time quarterback sack category for the CFL.
Hall of Famer, no question.
So, I mean, he can get it done still everywhere he goes.
Derek Wigan is a very, very good Canadian defensive tackle. Ormalade had the pick 6 a couple weeks ago for the Calgary Stampeders. Athletic. Adeyemi Berglund, young Canadian defensive end, somebody that can get things done. This is where I look, though, Chris. Cam Judge is playing his best football of his career right now, a Canadian out of the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA Bruins. But it's the back end that has a lot of people wondering what's happening here. Jamerson, new into the lineup. Williams, Moxie, one of those guys that has been able to get back to health and will start where Trey Roberson normally is. Brad Muhammad has played excellent this year, but the Calgary Stampeders injured list took a huge hit this past week. Linebacker Jameer Thurman on the 6 game. Titus Wall, who was in the running with Dalton Schoen for most outstanding rookie in the league this year. Their dime backer. He's on the 6 game injured list. Fan favorite Tom Schnitzler. Oh, yeah. There he is on the 6 game. Unfortunately, their fullback. But Trey Roberson, their starting center, all-star Sean McEwen, Brandon Dozier, they've taken a lot of hits to their roster, and they've been playing well enough through it. But it's Titus Wall that is, for me, Chris, the biggest change from last week to this week. As you can see here, him and Mills, the two defensive backs right there that are out of the lineup this week. Getting Kadeem Carey back is nice. Getting Malik Henry back is nice. But these 2 hits on the defensive side in Wall and Mills, and then you add in Jameer Thurman, who's still on the 6 game. Calgary is reeling a little bit in the health department.
But it's interesting because if you go on the Calgary Stampeder website and you can talk to the DB coach, Dwayne Cameron, he was very impressed with Jamerson, the guy that played in the trail, first-year guy out of Wisconsin State, at the cornerback position. They like, obviously, Dave Dickinson was waxing poetic about Eli Buka, just the way this kid's playing. He said, this kid's a natural. He's going to be really good in the league.
Well, he's a Canadian, but he played in the NFL. He was in the NFL for a while with the Arizona Cardinals.
I believe he was with Saskatchewan for a bit too, if I'm not mistaken.
They drafted him, yeah.
That's okay. I knew somehow there. So I think it'll be interesting. It's funny when I think about that, and I think about, our D-line, and I think about their D-line and getting after Jake Maier and obviously Bo Levi. And obviously I talked about this the last time we played, that one of my good friends, Mark Mueller, is the quarterback coach. And I really, usually he phones me when he comes in town. Hey, you want to go for a couple of Coleys? Well, this time, nothing, so obviously they want to keep everybody hush hush. His dad, Larry Mueller, is a good friend, obviously a big Saskatchewan Rough Rider board of director guy. But Mark Mueller with the quarterback coach, he's got a lot on his plate working with Dave Dickinson to find out and make that tough decision, because, come on, this is a huge change. When you pull a starter out of Bo and make him sit, I mean, he may play. Don't worry. I got a feeling we're going to see Bo Levi. This just my gut feeling. But Jake Maier, the way he plays, I mean, he's 81% passing right now. I mean, he hasn't thrown a ton of balls, and he hasn't thrown a touchdown. He has 1 interception, but he makes good decisions. And I mean, obviously, he's won games. And you hit a cool part. I was at that game when he went 16 for 16, and I think they lost by 2 points. Right. And if I do remember, they threw a deep ball, and I thought we got away with a pass interference at our goal line that might have changed the outcome of that game. But, that's one of those things.
Brandon Alexander, yeah.
So didn't get the call. But, hey, listen, that's in the past. That's why this game is so exciting. 6-3 Stampeders, the 9-1 Bombers. I agree with you 100%. The Bombers, even though they got the cushion, you really know that they don't want to go lose 2 in a row.
Well, they've the 2 Blue Bomber wins over Calgary, both at McMahon and here at IG Field. They're 7-point wins. They're 1-score wins. That's one play that made the difference in the game. So it's important to remember, just because Calgary's 6-3 and Winnipeg was undefeated until a tough loss and the kicker, this or this against an Eastern team, fine. These 2 teams are much more evenly matched than a lot of people are giving them credit for. I do want to mention a couple things before I put the Stampeders depth chart away. Coker comes in for Julian Good-Jones at right tackle. Derek Dennis remains, of course. Zach Williams, the pride of Transcona, Manitoba Bison, and Winnipegger, continuing to start and play extremely well at left guard. But on the note of offensive line, Chris, Roy Shroud, who's watching live on YouTube, what's your call on the Blue Bombers center situation with Michael Couture out with a broken arm and not ready to return yet? It has been Chris Kolinkowski on the Blue Bombers offensive line. Some are saying he's undersized. I don't think he's much, maybe an inch or two, maybe an inch shorter than Michael Couture, but same build and size. What have you seen from him after a couple tough games against Mike Moore and Armando Sewell and the Alouettes?
I think he's growing as an offensive lineman. I think he's going to be fine. I think this is a guy that's come in, and no, he's not undersized. 6, you don't want to center a lot. And I remember I watched one game. It was Edmonton Eskimos, now the Edmonton Elks. and they had a guy, O'Donnell, 6'11", and they made him take some snaps at center. 6'11". I mean, you don't have to bend down to put your hands under that guy's butt. It's right in your face. So, I mean, it's crazy. So I think Chris Kolnowski at 6'1", 309 pounds, a kid out of York, is doing really well. Listen, it's really tough, and not many players can come in first year and get thrown to the wolves and come in and not miss a beat. Yeah, there's some struggles, but do I think this kid's going to be all right? Absolutely. I think this kid's got a good future.
Yeah, third year out of York, as you mentioned, 6'1", 309. I think that'll do just fine for an interior offensive lineman. But the Blue Bombers offensive line is intact, of course, without their original starting center. Very interesting, I find it, Chris, that they're bringing in Tomoya Machino, a global from Japan, into this game. They didn't take a global out, so it's not like they needed to add a global player. They still have Teodric Hansen and Les Maruo at defensive end and linebacker. So why bring in Tomoya Machino? It makes you wonder if Pat Neufeld, who missed a lot of practice this week, Stanley Bryant potentially, like somebody's ailing.
Yeah, it's interesting you do that. I mean, I agree with you 100%. I think that's what it is. It's just a safety measure right now. I'm trying to think of a guy, and I'm going to go off board again, as I always do. He was a goalie for the Detroit Red Wings, a beer rep, and he hung around the Bombers all the time. And he just passed away, unfortunately. Great guy. I really liked the guy. And I wish I could remember his name, but he actually, we're talking about weight. And I came to training camp one year, and I'd never met this young man before. He wasn't a young man. He was older. He pulled me aside, and he goes, "I'm the new O-line coach." And I go, "What?" He goes, "I'm the new O-line coach, and you're too heavy. I need you to drop 20 pounds in the next 2 weeks, or we're going to have to make some changes." So I go, and I'm eating more cell than a rabbit.
What phase of your career was this?
Oh, God, this is probably year 12 or 13.
Wow.
And so he goes, "Yeah, you got to lose." Then I come back. I dropped 10 pounds. I go, "Wow, that's the best I can do, man. I mean, you can only eat so much rabbit." And next thing I know, I go and I find out he's the Labatt beer rep. He wasn't even a coach. So
seriously?
I'm serious. So for 2 weeks, I was eating more lettuce. And everybody's going, "Hey, want some walls? You want some beer?" No beer. "Hey, want some chicken?" "No chicken wings. No, just give me another bowl of that green stuff there." "Oh yeah." And that's
it's almost like it's almost like he was negging you into drinking Labatt beer and helping him out.
I think it was Labatt's, or it was Montreal, or a Molson. I think he might have been a Molson rep. I'm not sure, but I'm going to try Detroit Red Wings all-time goalies. I want to see if I can see who it was.
That's kind of
keep talking and go.
Why would he do that? That's kind of greasy, no?
Yeah,
man. Oh man, I can't imagine. So you're looking up this number here at this point. You know, I'll mention to everybody. Thanks for joining us here on Game Day Winnipeg. We're going to wrap up in just a second here, but don't forget Game Day After Dark. About 15-20 minutes after the game, we go live here on Bonfire Sports. Always fun. It's by far our most popular program here on the station. So if you haven't checked out the post game before, check it out. Join in live. We always have a ton of fun. And of course, the Bombers play Thursday, but that is not the only football in the city this weekend. Sunday, 1 o'clock at Eastside Eagles Field next to Terry Sawchuk Arena on Concordia. The Rifles host perennial contenders, the Saskatoon Hilltops. It is awesome football. $15 a ticket, free for those under the age of 18.
That's a great point,
if you can't make it down, cjfltv.com, and you can watch your Winnipeg Rifles all season long. They're expecting to make some big things this year, Chris.
Well, I want to say one thing about that. And I love the fact that you mentioned the fact that kids under 18 are admitted free, because they're the future of football. Those kids are the future. And once you get them involved, some kids might say, "I'm not really sure if I want to play football." And then they get to watch, some of the guys, maybe their older brothers, maybe their nephews or cousins. And all of a sudden they get intrigued by the game and they fall in love with the game and they want to play the game. So to me, it's always great when you have young kids. And I think it's so good because parents are like saying, "Well, I don't want to, pay $5 to take my 5-year-old boy there or my 7-year-old boy there." So, or even my 12-year-old boy. So the fact that the Rifles are allowing an 18-year-old, and under to come in free, I think that's a great move by the Rifles organization. I know the Edmonton Elks are doing the same thing in the CFL. They have the same scenario where they want kids to get involved because they are the grassroots of football, baby.
Yeah, the Stampeders do it with college kids. They have a special section there for students, and then of course, if you haven't been to a Bomber game in a while, what's that?
Bombers used to have one in the north end zone of the old stadium.
Yeah. I think they still do have something, but you call the Bomber office and they'll give you the latest lowdown on that. But if you haven't been to a Bomber game in a while, like Chris, I know you can attest to this. It is full of young people. It is not an old stodgy atmosphere. Last week against Montreal with over 30,000 in attendance, even earlier games this season with 25, 26,000, 27,000 in attendance. Like, it is young, it is energized, it is a special, special atmosphere. And there's lots of different ways to get to the games as well, with different park and ride and bike valet and the bus. There's tons of ways to. Yep. So check it out.
They're leading right now in the CFL. They have the best attendance right now per game,
and they got the sold out Banjo Bowl still to come.
Well, they got
so it's only going to
say earlier on the podcast. They got like 28,000, I think, or 28,000 sold for tomorrow night.
For Thursday night, they were at 27.5 as of Monday or Tuesday.
That's perfect.
So they're probably over 28 now, and they usually sell, like, my spies tell me they usually sell 1,000 plus
walk-ups.
Yeah, on that final day. So get your tickets now. And if you can't make it to the Bomber game and you just want to watch it, check out the post game here on Bonfire, and get to the Rifles game Sunday, 1 o'clock.
If I'm back Sunday, it's right around where I live now. So
it is.
I may very well take in that game. Unfortunately, I'll probably have to sneak in. I'm going to wear my Darren Bombing Bonfire. Oh, I don't have a shirt. Sorry. Okay. I can't wear that, but yeah, I know. I'm just kidding. I'll gladly pay the $15. I wonder do they take empties?
Yeah, I think so. But we'll figure something out for you.
All right, brother. Listen. Sorry.
Just want to remind you, riflesfootball.com, and then on all the social channels at Rifles Football. But this was fun, Chris.
Always a pleasure, DB. Oh my God. I told you I got this guy who wants me to golf with him tomorrow. No. Anyway, I'm
tough life, eh? Tough life.
No, I can't golf. I can't. My calf is still messed up, or my ankle. So what I'm going to do now is I actually wanted to go to the game tomorrow, but I gave my tickets to my son and his wife and my 2 grandkids. So Levi, who is 5, and Sawyer, who is 2, my granddaughter, are so excited to go to the Bomber game. I actually phoned the Bomber store today and ordered 2 jerseys. So and not Mikawas's, mine. So
no 77s, just 63s.
You know how many times I've got Mikowas jerseys? My God, Stan never phones. I got a phone. It's humiliating. All right.
Oh, man.
I got to get going, boys.
Chris, get out here? Thanks so much for joining. I just want to mention SIA.com/bonfire. There is tons of value there. Go to that link, help support Chris, myself, and Zach here on Bonfire Sports, and you get a nice bonus there as well. Okay, now I can dismiss you, pupil, sir. But thanks, and enjoy the game on Thursday.
Yeah, I think it'll be great, man. That'll be a good thing. We're going to be watching the games. Go Bombers. I think 10-1 sounds good. It'll be a close game, and that's what you want. I want a close game. I love football. I don't like blowouts. I mean, think about it. A blowout's like blowing a tire on a highway. Never a good thing. All right, that's my analogy for today. And I say to you now, goodbye, good luck, and God bless. Now, if I can figure out how to get out of here, as I